Trickster, Chapter 1. One waiting room, totally swept, I announce, parking the broom against the wall of the clinic. Can we go now? So the first thing you need to know about reading a narrative is that every time there's a new speaker, there will be a new paragraph. This is all one paragraph, you can tell because it's indented here. So since it's one paragraph, this is all spoken by the same speaker, even though we see two different quotes right here. Both of these quotes are spoken by I. Now, we don't know who the I is yet. We've got a first-person narrator, but since I is talking to somebody, they're probably going to say my name in a second. So we move on to our next paragraph, new speaker. Brenna Lake turns around at the front door. Duh, no, David. We can't go until Mr. Quinn calls. She sprays window cleaner on the messy nose prints left by a St. Bernard. Keep sweeping, she orders. I can see dog hair everywhere. So again, even though we've got three separate quotes here, since it's all in the same paragraph, it's all the same speaker. And this speaker is going to be Brenna Lake. We know because the paragraph introduces her. We've got some narration explaining what she's doing, and then it opens up with a quote that's going to be spoken by her. Now she says, my name. She says, no, David, in response to my question, can we go now? So this I, the first person narrator's name is David. So just a quick rehash of the setting. I have been sweeping. I say that I'm done. Brenna says that I'm not done because she can see dog hair everywhere. And she's cleaning up a window with cleaning up nose prints left by a St. Bernard, which is a type of dog. This is a St. Bernard. So remember, new paragraph, new speaker. What are you talking about? I ask. I did a perfect job. Talking about sweeping. Yeah, right, Brenna says. We're on cleaning duty today at Dr. Mack's place, the veterinary clinic across the street from my house. I always knew I'd end up working here. I'm close by, I'm great with animals, and people love me. It took a few years of pestering Dr. Mack, the vet, but she finally caved in. So this paragraph is all narration, just giving us more setting information. The place that they're cleaning right now is a vet clinic. There are 5 volunteers, Brenna, Zoe, Sunita, Maggie, and me. Dr. Mack, also known as Dr. J.J. Mackenzie, Maggie and Zoe's grandmother, brought us together a couple months ago. The clinic was overrun with sick puppies, and she was desperate. We've been regulars ever since. We help her with all kinds of cases, real emergency stuff like surgery, and day-to-day things like checkups and shots. The medical details are cool, but sweeping floors is the pits. I tried not to clean too much. It's bad for my health. A few more minutes and we are out of here. Today we're taking a road trip. Brenna sprays the next pane of glass. I don't know why you're so excited. All we're going to do at Quinn's stables is shovel manure and bounce along on old horses. What's the big deal? What's the big deal? I stare at her. I'm going to pause right here because you can see that what's the big deal is written in a different kind of font. This is called italics, where the font is turned to the right a little bit. In narrative writing, italics is mainly used for 2 things. Either thoughts, if the character is thinking to themselves, sometimes the thoughts will be written out in italics. You can't use quotes for thoughts because quotation marks indicate that the character is speaking out loud. Now in this case, there are quotation marks around what's the big deal, which means David did say that out loud. So in this case, the italics is going to mean the other thing, emphasis. Think about italics for emphasis as a classy way to do all caps. So like if you were only italicizing one word in a sentence, you would emphasize just that word. Like my sample sentence here, you have got to be kidding me. You could hear how I emphasized got because it was italicized. It's like a classier all caps. So here it is spoken out loud, we know because of the quotation marks, but it's also the whole sentence is italicized. So he's really stressing really the entire sentence as he repeats back to her what she just said, but he's in shock. So I'm going to reread this paragraph. What's the big deal? I stare at her. Did she really say that? We're going to be with horses. That's the big deal. We're going to ride and groom and everything. My broom falls to the floor with a bang, and Sunita looks up from the receptionist desk. So there's a third person in the room that we didn't know about a second ago. She wasn't a part of their conversation, but she is there sitting behind the secretary's desk. She's been entering addresses into Dr. Mack's computer. Sunita is the quietest of all of us. She's probably the smartest, too. Brenna's teasing you, David, Sunita says. I think she's as excited as you are. Am not, Brenna answers. How can you not be excited about riding a horse, I ask. Look, I've ridden before, Brenna says, rubbing the windows harder. It was the most boring half hour of my life. Brenna is one of those natural kind of girls. Old jeans, work boots, save the whales, that kind of stuff. So the reason I've pulled out this quote is anytime you get a physical description of the character, I want you to try to really picture what the character looks like in your mind. Now for this series, they actually do put pictures of the characters on the cover of each book, so you've got a physical picture of Brenna, but I want you to really picture her the way she is described in this quote. So old jeans, work boots, save the whales, that's like a t-shirt style. Just a really natural girl. She was the only one who wasn't totally psyched when Dr. Mack told us we'd be helping out at Quinn's stables for a few weeks. I'll fix that. You had a slowpoke, that was the problem, I tell her. You need a good horse. Mr. Quinn has tons of them. But you can't ride the quarter horse, the ones he's picking up in Maryland today. He's all mine. The horse costs a quarter, Brenna teases. No, it's a kind of breed. Quarter horses are strong and fast. You've probably seen them on TV. They use them in rodeos for roping and barrel racing. Has to be a smart horse to do that. Mr. Quinn won't let you ride a fast, expensive horse, Brenna scoffs. Not with your history. What history? Sunita asks. Didn't you hear what he did? Brenna puts down the window cleaner and paper towels. It was in the newspaper last year. David was riding with a bunch of people at Quinn's stables and took off from the group. It took half the police force to find him. That was you? Sunita asks. No, even you wouldn't do something like that. It was a little more complicated than Brenna makes it sound. It happened at the end of 4th grade. 4th grade stank. I wish I could sweep up the whole year and throw it in the trash. My dad left when I was in 4th grade. Dad was the one who taught me how to ride. He went to high school with Mr. Quinn, and they'd been good friends ever since. Dad had me up on a horse before I learned to walk. Riding was our thing to do together. I'd been thinking about Dad during that famous ride, the one that got me in trouble. He and Mom had separated a few months earlier. He kept promising to visit me, but he hardly ever made it. He promised lots of things that never happened. Mom was the one who took me to Quinn's that day. She knew how bummed out I was. The split was hard on her, too. I wasn't planning on getting in trouble. I must have just lost track of what I was doing. I was just thinking about all the things I wanted to tell Dad, and the next thing I knew, my group had vanished. It really wasn't my fault that they left me behind like that. I tried a couple of shortcuts, but they didn't work like I thought they would. We ended up at the mall, of all places. I couldn't do anything right that day. When Mr. Quinn arrived with the police, he didn't want to hear my side of the story. I should have paid attention, blah, blah. I didn't listen, blah, blah. I wasn't responsible, blah, blah, blah. And that was the end of horse riding for David Hutchinson. Until today. Dr. Mack said the magic words, and Mr. Quinn is giving me another chance. I really want to make a good impression. The stable is short-handed because it's final exam time at the high school. This is my chance. If Mr. Quinn sees how hard I can work, he might let me ride there again. That would rock. Brenna starts on the window next to the front door. If you don't sweep the floor properly, the only thing you'll be riding is that broom. That's so funny, I forgot to laugh. I sweep the fur balls behind the potted plant. No one will see them there. I pulled this quote out because this is an important part of David's character. He was just talking about how he wants to make a good impression on Mr. Quinn, so Mr. Quinn can see what a hard worker he is. But here, doing his chores at the clinic, he's taking shortcuts. Rather than sweeping up the dust and throwing it in the trash can, he just kind of sweeps the fur balls behind a potted plant. So he thinks of himself as a hard worker and wants to prove himself to be a hard worker, but then here he is not really working very hard. "Is it safe to come out?" a voice calls from the kitchen. Now, since it says a voice instead of giving us the name of the character, this is a new character that we haven't already seen before. So we've had David and Brenna talking back and forth to one another, and Sunita at the receptionist desk, who chimed in a little bit. Now we've got this new character who we can't see yet. We just hear their voice coming calling from the kitchen. Zoe peeks through the door that connects the clinic to Dr. Mack's house. "Is that rat gone?" she asks. Okay, so Zoe is that voice we heard a second ago. It seems like she's afraid of a rat. Zoe's a little high-strung, but she's cool. She's hanging here for a while so her mom can move to Hollywood. Her parents are divorced and she never sees her dad. I can relate to that. Zoe was raised in New York City, Manhattan, and living here has been something of a shock for her. Like when a ferret came in earlier, she freaked. A ferret is not a rat. It's not even a rodent, Sunita explains with a sigh. Ferrets are related to weasels. Relax, Zoe. It has beady little eyes, Zoe says. I hate those. She eases into the room and closes the door behind her. Your mom called again, David. That's the 4th time. You really should call her back. She probably just wants me to take out the trash, I say. I'll call her later. Hey, Zoe, what do you get when you cross a horse with the house next door? She rolls her eyes. I don't know, David. What? A neighbor. How funny. Did you think that up by yourself? Now, I read that line sarcastically because how funny is followed by a period, which does not show excitement. If she'd really thought it was funny, she probably would have said it with some excitement and we would see an exclamation point. When we're laughing, we're actually exclaiming. So it would be like, how funny! Exclamation point. Did you think that up by yourself? This period right here tells me that she doesn't really find it funny. She doesn't care. So that's why I read that line sarcastically. The door to the Doolittle examination room swings open. The rat! Yikes! Zoe dashes back into the house just as her cousin Maggie walks out. Close behind Maggie is a college-age guy named Eric holding Rascal the Ferret's carry cage. Dr. Mack brings up the rear and motions for the owner to go to the receptionist desk. How's Rascal? I ask. He'll make it, Dr. Mack answers. No broken bones, no internal bleeding. He is one frightened ferret, though. That was quite a fall he took. It's a good thing he landed on the hammock. Maggie peeks into the cage. Don't be such a knucklehead, she cautions the ferret. Next time you'll really get hurt. He went right through the screen window, Eric explains as he writes out a check. He just flew. Sometimes I think he has more energy than brains. What am I supposed to do? Keep the windows closed all the time? Dr. Mack takes the check from him and hands him a brochure. This will give you some tips on how to make your apartment safer. Make sure there are no openings around the pipes under your sink or he could squeeze in and get trapped in the wall. Don't let him chew on rubber toys because rubber bits can block his intestines. And he needs a collar with an identification tag and bell too. That way you won't accidentally step on him. Sounds like work, Eric says as he folds the brochure and sticks it in his pocket. It's worth it, Dr. Mack assures him.